Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Dennis. So I've kind of been procrastinating back and forth on a build. So let's finally get on to doing the build. I'm still waiting to do the 7000 series build for the 7900X. That's getting delayed because there's some issues that I want to work with. Because when you see the design of the 7000 series CPU, it's very easy to get thermal paste into those little grooves. Now there's little devices you can buy to prevent that. I got one, it's not the right one. There's another one coming, so until I get that, I'm not going to even bother trying. Just because I don't want to have to spend hours trying to clean that off. Instead, we're going to do the X570 build. We're going to put it into my Corsair case, which means I've got to take a lot of stuff out. We'll do a little bit of that, showing what we have to disconnect and what we can still use. And then we're going to swap the other one in, and then we're going to test it out, and hopefully everything's still working good. Here we go. The beauty of this case, very simple to open it up. Lift it up off the hinges, and we have access to the inside. So obviously the things we have to do first, take out our graphics card. Got to take the motherboard and everything out all in one shot. But I have to disconnect everything down here, disconnect our USB 3, power, all right, all that good stuff. And once that's all out, the other motherboard will go in, and we just have to make sure everything gets reconnected. So for now, I'm just going to start disconnecting everything. Very simple, especially for the USB 3.0. It's not real hard to get that off. But we're going to get this off first for our PCIe graphics card. Okay, that should come out pretty easy. Same thing for the bottom one, or the one on the side. I think I can all sit. There's lots of room in the bottom, so that's a nice thing as well. You can just let it set there. Okay, so now I'm going to take out the graphics card. For those that aren't aware, there's a little, let me see if I can point to it for you. Right in here, there's a little catch. So if you put your screwdriver on that catch and just give it a push, that will disconnect. Now, before you do that, mind you, you have to take the screws out. So then you push on that. You can just push with your finger even to disconnect and then take it out. So that's our next step. Take these screws that are holding it in and take them out. Okay. And again, push on this with your finger. You don't need a screwdriver. And it should come out pretty easily. Sometimes it gets caught in there. If it does, push again. What? Is there something catching? No, that's it. Comes out. Now this was a 770. I will definitely be upgrading that to something more current, because that's just not going to work anymore. Hard to get drivers and that kind of stuff for it. This is actually a really good motherboard, actually. I could upgrade the CPU and still keep this going, which I think I'm probably going to wind up doing. Pulling out your front panel connectors. Pull them all off. You can do it single, one at a time. The way I did it is fine. USB comes out. And of course your HD audio. Right. That has disconnected all our cables from our motherboard except for our SATA. So we'll push on these little catches here. Again, they can just set loose. And now you're going to take out your 8-pin for power and your 24-pin for power. Remember, everything that's holding this motherboard in was your standoff screws. So it's not like it's going to come out. So just make sure you got that out. It's not always easy, but once you get it out, like I say, you got room over here. The hard one actually is getting to this one, because that's always a little bit trickier. Now in this case, it's a little bit easier. You just push it and then you pull. It should come out fairly easy. And again, you can just kind of set it on top. Now we're going to undo all our screws and take it off. Now, just in case you're interested, I'm going to show you the back. We're going to take this off as well. Again, it's on hinges as well. That shows you the mess I've got in here. Our Corsair hub. There's a lot to deal with. So thankfully, we're not really going to have to do much with that. But just to give you a look at what it's like. And now we're going to get it to all our standoff screws. And we're going to undo that. And that's going to be it as far as taking it out. This one has a I/O shield built onto it, so we don't even have to worry about that. So depending on how comfortable you are with doing everything, you can lay it down on its side, or you can leave it the way I'm going to do it and just start with your screws. And what I like to do is leave the ones on the top, or rather take the ones on the top and bottom out first. Again, they should be fairly loose, but just snug enough to hold it in place. And then the one that's going to hold it in place right here is this one standoff. It happens in a lot of Corsair cases. That's not a screw that you have to even worry about taking out. So you take your ones on top, take this one here, the one that's kind of right tucked away up in here, and it will still stay there with no screws. But like I say, don't take my word for it. Lay it down if it makes you more comfortable, as long as you make sure that you don't pull this out so that nothing falls and gets destroyed. Okay, how you do it is up to you. I do have this one more cable here for the CPU, but I don't have to disconnect that because this is still going to stay the same. I don't have to take out a memory. This is a fully functional system right here, except for this one fan that I do need to disconnect. All right, that's one thing that has to be done. And if there was any other fans, you'd have to do that too. So anyway, we'll come back after I get all the screws out. Okay, so all the screws are out. The only thing holding this in place is that little standoff that's kind of a makeshift for centering it in the first place. And you can lift it off with this, won't cause any problems. So again, just kind of lift it off because you're pulling it out carefully because you want to get that I/O shield out of the way. Clear your cables, and that's it. Now this, put into another case, will be fully functional. All right, I didn't even bother taking those out, but I will. And everything is good to go. So all we got to do now is we're going to get our X570. We're going to use this to center it again, plug everything back in, and we're going to go from there. I have other ideas, so we're not done with repurposing this case and everything else in it. Okay, so one of the things, I always procrastinate. I don't know why. I always seem to think, almost make myself think it's harder than it is. And it always turns out to be much easier. So when you're tackling something, don't give up right away like I do sometimes. Just go ahead and do it. Okay, if you need help, find somebody that can help you. Okay, so this is our motherboard, the MPG X570 Gaming Plus AM4 socket. All right, so it takes 5000 series. Right in here, we have everything all set to go except for the memory is value memory. I'm going to swap that out for faster memory later on to get the most out of this system. But more importantly, if you look on the motherboard down here, it doesn't have the I/O shield, so you need to put that on. So if you look here, you just have to fit it in place. Goes in very easy. Just pop it in from the other side, just line it up, and you're good to go. So once that's done, don't forget that, because otherwise you're going to have to take everything out. Now you can take your motherboard, slot it in there, and the only thing you need to make sure, see how this is going to go in when you put it in your system, so you can line it up properly with the I/O shield. Because if you line it up the wrong way, well, then you got issues, like always. So again, because this is already ready to go, you have to double check that everything is in the right place. And because we have this, we're going to be able to use that to hold it in place, but we have to check it. So we're moving around some of our cables to line everything up, and that's going to hold it in place. And you can see you're going to have to move this a little bit to make sure that lines up, so when you plug things in, it's all good to go. So putting your screws in, very straightforward. You need a screwdriver. If you have a magnetic tip, it's obviously going to help. Put your screw on, find your holes, make sure they're lining up. Put a couple in there. That way you're not just depending on whether that's going to hold or not. Just tighten it up a little bit. Don't over tighten, because you want to make sure we can line up all these and they're in the right spot. Once they're in the right spot, you will see them. Everything will line up with that I/O shield on the back. Okay? And then when you look on the back, you'll notice these are all now popping out. all right, which they should be, and these should be able to easily be plugged into without any problems. Okay, so the things I've done in the meantime, I got new memory. So this is DDR4 memory from TForce. It's our Delta RGB, and it's 3600 speed. Hopefully this will work, and I can overclock the memory at least, get a little more performance out of this since I have a better motherboard. In the meantime, going to hook all my cables back up. Don't know if I'm taking this out or not just yet. I'll probably do that later on. The other things I have to do is I have to put our antenna in for our Wi-Fi. I'm going with a 1080 for now, GTX 1080. So the 770 was in it before, and it's no longer supported. And so basically all our motherboard standoffs, the screws are in, everything's held in place. So next things I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my 24 pin for power, the 8 pin up here, it goes on the left hand side, and all our cables and everything down here. And yeah, that'll be it. So we're going to go ahead, do that. Like I say, it's a build, but kind of more swapping things over, if you will, because this is basically upgrading this system from what it was to something a little better. And I like to make sure that that clicks, but sometimes it doesn't always click in place. So you have to check this little notch, okay, on this side, make sure that's in there. Okay, now if you're ever in doubt, you can always pull it out. If it comes out, okay, see, it's not, so that is, it's clicked in place, you just didn't hear it. So the big thing now is as long as it doesn't come out, you're good. Plug in your other one, which is the 8 pin for power. Make sure you're lining your tabs up correctly, and you'll be good to go. The other thing I did, I took the fan, I changed it around a little bit, and I'm feeding it around the back because it goes into the fan hub that's there. And that way you have one less cable in the front. And less cables is always better. And you hear that one click in, so that's good. So we have power. We're going to plug in our SATA for our different hard drives. It doesn't matter which one you use, by the way. For some people it does, because you want to make sure that you've got the right thing. As long as you're following the L shape that's on your motherboard, you'll be good to go. All right, sometimes you'll hear them click in place. And this is for our graphics card, so we don't need to worry about that just yet. PCIe. And now we're going to do our, what is this one? This is our RGB, I believe. So this is from the hub in the back. So it just needs a USB cable to plug into. All right. Have our HD audio. I don't have to mess with these too much because they were in there before, so they're all going to reach. And they're already having been there. Doesn't matter the motherboard. USB is always the same, especially when you're talking 2.0. And HD audio doesn't really ever change. Sometimes it does. It's very rare, but sometimes it does. So other thing we got to plug in is another USB here. So we'll find one for that, which just happens to be over here. Let's see. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, we have our front panel connectors. We want to make sure we have lots of room for that. So you have your PLED, positive and negative, HDD on the bottom. Now it is a little bit tricky to do this, so you can do one at a time and it'll be just fine. Okay. So those two are done, and now we have our power and the reset. Reset on the bottom, power on the top. Next two pins over. Okay, just like that. And other than our graphics card, I don't think there's anything else. This is not actually connecting to anything. It's just a spare if you need it to give you an extra USB. We've hooked up our hard drive and our DVD player, which, like I say, I may replace later on. So graphics card can go in, but at first I'm going to do the Wi-Fi, simply because, well, it's easier to do that. And then it gives me room to do this here, and then we'll do the memory and the graphics card. So here's a case where I think normally I didn't have room for the USB. In fact, do I have another USB? Let me just see here. So I don't have another USB. So this is a rare event that this little cable I can now pull off, and I'll be able to plug in my Wi-Fi into here for the USB and power it. Now that only gives you the Bluetooth feature of that. So if you don't want to have the Bluetooth, whatever the reason, maybe you got a Bluetooth adapter, take the cable off. You don't need it. So we're just going to plug this in. Where did I have it before? I think it was right here. Okay, and just pop it in. And we'll just put the screw in. And then we're going to put the graphics card in here. Okay, so we're going to be taking out the value memory. But here's something I just want to mention. I plugged in the USB cable to that extra one that was down here. Now there's a gap. Small gap. Won't bother anything, but just be aware of that. But because we're using that, haven't used it before, I'm not replacing the memory just yet. So we're going to put the graphics card in, we're going to turn it on, and if everything goes well, then we'll swap out the memory after, because I want to make sure I haven't made too many changes. Because if you make too many changes, then you have to go back, and it becomes difficult to diagnose what might have gone wrong. So you make as little changes as possible. Upgrading a graphics card to a newer one doesn't really have much effect if it's the same one. So NVIDIA graphics card, it's going to go right in here. And once I got it in place, let's make sure it's lined up. It should just slide in. Unless I'm doing something wrong. Oh, you know what? I'm missing something. I just realized. I don't think... Actually, we're going to take that out because I think I just realized. There's a cable missing. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, too. There should be another cable for the USB 3.0. So we're going to PCIe. There we go. It's because it tucked away back here. So there's our USB for the 3.0. Your connector is right down here. Line up this little tab. And I'm just going to plug it in. Now, the one thing that I have to do is tuck these cables out of the way a little bit to make sure that this is going to plug in okay. Now, actually, I have another USB 3 down here. And you know what? It'll go in there, but I'm going to use the bottom one because I think it'll fit easier. Okay, so once I've got it, there. And I'm not real worried about the cables in here, I'll be honest with you. There's so much space, and this is not like a showpiece. So now that I know that's in there, everything is good. On the back, okay, you can see I've got the antenna here. I put those on. Now we'll put the graphics card in. Now that I know everything else should be connected. If I missed anything, we'll come back to it. We'll check it out. So let's put that graphics card in. Okay, so put it in here. And I don't know if you heard that. The little tab clicks. Once that clicks, you know it's in place. You can check the back. Make sure everything is lined up properly here. And if it is, go ahead and put your screws in to fasten it into the case. And then once you get it going, you're good. And then what I do is I push it up just a little bit. Put the other one in. And then we're going to power it up, make sure it works. Then we're going to change our memory out. Now remember, this is a system that did work before, so it should work again. The only thing that's different is I added a second M.2. Whether that will play any part in how well it works. I don't know. It shouldn't, but we'll find out. Don't forget, you have your PCIe. Okay, you have a 6 and an 8 pin. The 8 pin is going to go on here. The tab is on the bottom. So we just have to make sure that we plug that in. Otherwise, we won't know if it's working because we won't be able to see the display. So I'm going to hook up my monitor and everything to it. And we're going to turn it on. And everything should be good. Okay, everything's hooked up. Let's power it on and hope nothing got missed. See, so it's powering up. Lights are coming on. And you should have something on the screen here in just a minute. Once I know everything there is good, then we'll go and change our memory. So that tells me I got a boot issue. Everything's coming up perfectly. Good, we're good. So now we're going to change our memory and make sure that's working. And then I'm going to go back into the BIOS and show you how to make sure that your XMP is turned on. So to take out your memory is pretty simple. So pop the tabs on the bottom. And then they should just come right out. The ones on the top, if they don't move, which these ones don't, once you start pulling them out, they come out pretty simple. Okay, so just lift from the bottom. Now we were occupying all 4 slots, but when we put them back in, we're only occupying slots. So we're not using 1, we're using 2, not 3 and 4. So slot 2 and 4 is where they're going to go in. So let's grab our memory. That'll make it look a little better too. Don't forget, the other thing you're going to have to do here is make sure any software you had from before that was working on your system, whether it be fans or anything like that, especially because this has IQ software kind of stuff on it, load up that software again, because it's not on here right now, so that you can set all those colors, everything back on. All right, so do that. And in another video, I might replace this. I'm not going to do it for this video. That's going to stay the way it is for now, but we'll replace that later on. When you're putting in your memory, you have little slots here. Check that when you hold the memory, okay, just hold it like that. It doesn't line up. If it doesn't, then you need to turn it and then put it in the same way, line it up, and you're just going to be able to push. You'll hear it click in place, and you'll hear this bottom one click up to hold it in place. Okay, same thing for the second one. And of course, now that you know how that one went in, just make sure the other one goes in the same way. Oh, 2 there. Oh, you can hear it. You don't hear that click very loudly, but you will hear the bottom one. So slot 2, slot 4. Okay, we're going to power it up one more time because I want to show you the memory. I think it looks cool. So now what I did when I did that is I turned the power off of the power supply. I didn't bother to unplug it. Doesn't hurt anything really. So let's power it back on and have one final look. And then we're going to go to BIOS. Oh, I did turn the switch off, however. That's not on. The switch up here is not going to work. So this should light up. And actually your Corsair software will probably detect that as well. And you'll be able to make any adjustments. Okay, now see on your screen here, I want to show you this to you. So you see this here, your computer knows you've changed memory. And it says, hey, devices have changed CPU or memory, or the CMOS was cleared. F1 to run setup or F2 to load default values. We want to run F1. So it's going to take us right into our BIOS. We're going to go over here to XMP, and we're going to turn it on. Now if we go down to our memory, it says we're at 2400, but that should have changed. DDR speed 2400. I'm pretty sure this is 3600. Did I get this wrong? Let me double check. Yeah, it's 3600. 24. Okay, we're going to figure out why the memory is not going. So we're going to do that right now. because I'm going to go advanced F7, overclock settings, and XMP profile. Go from, oh, I don't want that. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, we're going to go profile. Let's go profile 2, see what happens. Okay, profile 2. So if you go down here, DRAM frequency is now saying it's running at 3600 megahertz. I think we just have to reboot. All right, so we're going to F10. We're going to say yes. It's going to reboot. So I'm not sure why it didn't automatically detect that and change. But if you look here, DDR speed is now registering at 3600 megahertz. All right, CPU 3.7. When we exit this time, it's F10 and save. It's going to tell you there's no changes. So that's what happens when you exit out. So we'll do that. F10 it says you haven't made any changes. So you just say yes anyway. And it's going to boot you up back into Windows and you'll be good to go. So let's have a look at our system one more time. Just to show you. And again, we're going to have to make sure that we do all the software and everything afterwards. So there are some things that you are going to wind up having to do. Bottom line, everything worked and we're good to go. I just wanted to show you as well. Our drives are showing up. There's our 1 terabyte with our Steam games and everything on it. Our C and our D. We're good to go. All right, everybody. So that's the video. Build guide. Show you some of the things that can happen when you swap out your motherboard, upgrading your system, which a lot of you might be ready to do right now. So keep in mind whether you're going to change out your memory, whether you need a new graphics card, whether you're just going to use one that you already have. There's software that you have that you may need to reinstall. Okay, all these kind of things you have to keep in mind. Okay, bottom line is though, if you got faster memory and you need to go enable XMP, do a reboot and then everything should fine. Some motherboards, and I've had them, it just automatically seemed to work. You didn't have to reboot. But if all I got to do is reboot and it's all good to go, I'm happy with that. So hope you liked the video. Hope you learned stuff from it. Try to do a little bit of extra things other than just showing you how screws go in, because that stuff's pretty easy to figure out. Front panel connectors, I didn't show you that. I've done that. I've done a video on just that. All that kind of stuff. So just focused on the stuff that you might need to be involved with upgrading your system. So if you liked the video, hit that like. If you're new here, think about subscribing. Hit that bell for notifications of future videos as they come up. And I hope you like it. Hope you learned something. If not, leave me a comment. Maybe I'll learn something. You never know. God knows there's a lot I got to learn. All right. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one. Bye-bye.